As the Light Grows Weary by Casey D. Sullivan. Story 2 presented by Paul Lubanski. The world around Martin became dead quiet. The city that never sleeps seemed to slow to a halt. He got up and stepped away from the yellow taxi that he was certain had collided with him. His heart, once beating like Satan against the gates of hell, seemed to calm, beat more rhythmically. All around him, the lights of the city began to oblong into wondrous shapes and figures. Time had stopped, but light had decided to go on without it. Martin walked on, the lights, the endless lights now streaking past him. It was as if he had stepped into the movie Tron, only it was more intense, more gripping, because it was happening to him. As the lights dazzled him, a new voice called out, one that seemed like shouting. A fight. Martin couldn't put his finger on it, but it was a voice he could almost recognize, one that he seemed to know very well. He headed briskly towards it. The men around him had begun to lose their features, to blur before him. Men and women stood silent and still on the sidewalk, and yet their faces were indistinct. Martin rushed on, turned the corner, and reached an alley where he saw a man and a woman fighting over a purse. He wanted to help, but his feet refused to move. Without a sound, the man stole the woman's purse and shot her point blank. Her eyes turned, seemed to fix onto him somehow. Martin did not know who the man was, but he didn't care. He ran. Martin ran as fast as he could, and the streaks of light seemed to slow down his pace. To his pace, finally, when he could run no more, Martin staggered and tried to draw a deep breath, but realized for the first time that he could not. He fell to the ground, attempting to call out, but no sound escaped him. Martin looked up and discovered that he was now on the other side of the city. Another story was unfolding before him. He saw a man dealing with tough guys in suits. The man handed them money, and they handed him drugs and a list of school districts. But why? Martin thought, why are they doing this when I am right here? Abruptly, the broad-shouldered men turned their gaze upon him. Why me? He desperately wanted to know. Martin fled yet again, his heart bursting within him as he found himself becoming delirious, losing consciousness. He turned into an old, run-down tenement building. At last, he managed a breathless sigh of relief. Suddenly, above him, he heard shouts. At the top of the stairs were a man and a woman. The woman was pregnant, and the man was furious about it, yelling for her to get rid of it. They were fighting. The man pushed the woman over the edge of the stairs, and she came falling down, each step seeming to break yet another bone and crush her swollen belly. The woman's eyes opened, stared lifelessly back at him, at Martin. His head turned upwards toward the man, and then he saw the worst sight of all. Those eyes, those horrible, vengeful eyes staring back at him. Martin bolted out of the building, ran faster than he had ever run before. Under his breath, he chanted the mantra that he had pushed to the back of his mind since he first saw the taxi. I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. The fleeting lights seemed to slow themselves. They were no longer keeping pace. His time was running short. Everything he had seen, everything he had done, it had all culminated into this moment. I'll change. I know I can do it. He ran on for what seemed like hours, muttering those same words over and over again. I'll change. I'll change. He stumbled, broke down in the middle of the road, his knees on the asphalt, his face toward the sky. He made one last plea. God, forgive me. The lights stopped. The taxi attempted to swerve, screeched violently in the still of the night. Now the driver stood over the man he had just hit. The police and medics had already searched him, found his name to be Martin Graft, a highly wanted criminal. Among his belongings, they confiscated drugs, printed bills, and a semi-automatic. The police had suspected that Graft was high when he wandered into the oncoming taxi. The driver had heard him scream and slammed on his brakes. Right before his taxi struck the man, he could sense the lights of the city slowing, braking with his cab. But too late for Martin Graft.